Okay, we're gonna try and prepare our RunCam HD camera over here for use with the latest firmware and the online configuration tool. RunCam does come with a little software, downloadable software, but it's not great. But I'll show you how to use the online version of that software, which actually works very well. So I have a brand new RunCam over here, and then I've got a SD card which I want to use to I'm going to use this to load the latest software and configure this RunCam HD. So looking at this drawing on the RunCam, this is the camera, and inside the camera goes a SD card, and on the root folder of that SD card you can have three different kinds of files. There is a RunCam HD.bin, which is a firmware file. There's a dump CFG info.bin, which is the current configuration of the camera, and then it's a Dtc Config.bin, which is a new configuration file, and I'll show you how to use all those files. And basically what it means is you will place something like the RunCam HD.bin file on the root folder of the camera. You'll insert the SD card into the camera, and you'll turn it on, and it will load the latest firmware, and I'll show you where to get that. And this file, the DMP config info file, the camera generates that file automatically when you connect it to your computer, and that tells you the current configuration, you know, what rate it is, and the sizes, and all of those configuration details go in this file, and it's automatically generated. And then this file is an online tool that can generate you this file. If you copy it onto the card and insert it into the camera, it will reload the configuration from this file and generate a new output, and thus you can control the configuration. So you as long as you have access to an SD card, you can do this from a tablet or a phone or anything. There's an Android application as well, but I'll show you on a PC. So the first step, of course, is to take this little SD card, and I'm going to insert it into my PC like such, and make sure that it's available. And then I'm going to go to this site, and I'll give you the URL to that, and the RunCam online application site. So in there is an option update firmware, and what I typically do with a brand new camera is just to download the latest firmware. So I will download that, and that's that file, RunCam HD.bin. It's this guy, RunCam HD.bin. I will download it, and I will save it on my machine. I have now already saved a copy of it, but I will go and find that file, and I will drag it onto my SD card. So onto the SD card, then there's only this one single file that I can use. So back on my camera, I will remove this SD card. I will insert it into the camera, a brand new camera, and I will turn it on. And you will note that the red light flashes a few seconds, and then will rapidly start flashing as it's loading the new configuration. There you can see it flashing fast, and it's now loading the new configuration, or the new firmware. Sorry, not configuration, the firmware. It has now loaded the new firmware into the camera. So this camera has now been updated to the latest firmware, and I'm going to close here, and I'm going to go to camera settings. And now the next step is I'm going to connect this camera to my PC over here. So I'm going to plug that in, and I'm going to connect it. And now if I go back to my camera, you will see to my SD card that's now inside the camera, you'll see that that firmware file has disappeared, and in its place is this dump cfg.info file. And if we go back to this original drawing, this dump cfg info is the current configuration. Okay, so that's the configuration as it is at the moment. So it's written that file there for us. So now we're going to go into the app again, and we know it's a current version. We can, but we can go in there, and it says load now. I say load, and I'm going to go look for that file that's on the camera, and I'm going to load it. And it says you're on the latest firmware, and we know that. And now we go to the settings. Now here's the settings, and this is totally up to you. I don't want it to power on auto record. I don't want that. I want it to, but by default this is typically turned on. So you turn that off. The video, I want wide dynamic range turned on. I don't want loop recording. I want 10 minutes on 720. I want wide dynamic range turned on. Photo, so whatever you want to configure, and at the end of the day you hit the save button, and that now generates the third kind of file, and it's this Dtc Config File. That's our new configuration. So let's go make it a change. I'm going to say in photo, I'm going to say I don't want the timestamp on. So I'm going to generate the file. And there is the file, and I'm going to say download the file. It's over here. So I'm going to take that file, and I'm now going to drag it onto the camera. So now I have my original config and my new config. So all I have to do now is really recycle the camera, which I'll do now. I'll turn the power off. And you'll see that it flashes for a few seconds there. And I'll turn the power back on to the camera, or recycle it, start it up again. And go back to the tool. So now if I open the camera again, we will see that the new configuration file has disappeared, and in its place is again just the current configuration file, the info file. So that file's back, that file's disappeared, that file's disappeared, and it's only this file. So to validate it, I'm just going to go in here and say, I'm going to load the file now from my camera. There it is. I'm going to load it. It's going to say it's the latest version. I'm going to come in here and let's go to photo, and we can see timestamps off. So I'm going to turn timestamp back on. I'm going to say save a file for me. It's going to generate me a new file. I'm going to download that file. I'm going to take that file, but you see now it's got a 1. That's, the operating system Windows might put something copy or something like that. I will drag that file onto the card, but it can't be named that. It will have to be named dt config.bin. There's the new configuration file, and now I can just go through the same procedure. I can just shut the camera down by long pressing. It will shut down, and oops, I didn't eject it, and Mac wants you to eject it, but I can turn the camera back on. And that file has disappeared, and now a new configuration file. So that way you can use this online tool to make all sorts of changes and generate you the new file. So just to reiterate or sum again, there's this kind of file, RunCam hd.bin, which is a new firmware. There's this kind of file, dct config.bin, which is a new configuration you want it to be, and the online tool generates that for you. And then this file, that's your current configuration file that you can use to feed it into the online tool to see what you configured as at the moment. Of course, you don't have to feed it this file. You can straight go into this and just create a configuration that you want, save it, save that file onto onto the SD disk and turn the camera on, and it will have a new configuration. So that's the basic idea of how to use the RunCam software and the RunCam online tool. Thank you.